Maseches Yevamos Daf Kuf Zayin begins the 13th parak of the Masechta, which introduces the topic of miyun and the halachos in detail of how miyun works. Now, to remind ourselves, miyun is when a girl who is a kitana under age 12 is married off by her brothers or by her mother, not by her father. Therefore, it's only kiddushin midirabanan, and she has the right to walk out of the marriage by saying, "I don't want this marriage anymore." And that's the procedure called miyun. Now, the Mishnah introduces 5 machlokim between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai about how miyun can be done. I think we'll analyze them one by one, including some of the details of some of the halachas. So the Gemara begins the 5 machlokim. The Mishnah begins the 5 machlokim between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai are as follows. First of all, can a woman do miyun when she is an arusa only, or also when she is a nesua? According to Beis Shammai, only an arusa can do miyun once she becomes a nesua, once she's actually married, no longer just engaged. She can't do miyun. According to Beis Hillel, she can do miyun even if she's a nesua. Next is, can one do miyun from a yavam? That is, if she falls to yibum, can she do miyun now? Can she only do miyun when she is married? Beis Shammai says she cannot do miyun on a yavam. Beis Hillel says she can. The next question is, does miyun have to be done in front of the husband? Beis Hillel says no, and Beis Shammai says yes, it has to be in front of the husband. Fourth issue, does a bezdin have to be present? Again, Beis Shammai says yes, a bezdin has to be there. Beis Hillel says no, it's all right even without a bezdin. And the last issue is, can the same girl do miyun multiple times to multiple husbands? Beis Shammai says no, she can only do miyun once. After that, she cannot do miyun again, because that would mean that she is just being hefker. She's marrying and getting unmarried all the time. So she can do one, and if she wants to get married again, she has to wait until she grows up. She can do miyun and then get married. And Gemara asks, what do you mean she has to do miyun again? We already said she did miyun. And Beis Hillel says she can do miyun 4 or 5 times, no problem. All right, now the Gemara is going to analyze these machlokas one by one. So the Gemara first of all says, what is the reasoning behind the machlokas between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai as to whether or not he can do miyun from the status of being married? Once she's in a nesua, can he do miyun or not? Beis Shammai says no. Why not? What's the issue? So the Gemara brings 4 different potential explanations for why Beis Shammai says you cannot do miyun from nesuin. The first is that there's a halacha that you cannot make a tenai on a nesuin. You can only make a condition, a tenai, on an erusin. An engagement, kiddushin, you can engage someone b'ma'aris in the isha on a certain condition, and then if the condition is not fulfilled, the marriage is canceled and she just walks away. That's fine. However, in a nesuin you can't do that. And even if you do make a condition, once nesuin happens, the condition is considered to be not relevant anymore. Even if she doesn't keep the kedushin, even if she doesn't keep the tenai, the kedushin still stands. The reason for that is we assume that during the bia, out of the great love that he experienced for her, he was mochel the condition. Says Beis Shammai, if you allow a woman to walk out of a marriage after nesuin by doing miyun, people won't understand that this was a miyun. They'll think that there was a tenai and the tenai was not fulfilled. Therefore, they'll learn the wrong halacha that you can have a nesuin canceled by the unfulfillment of a tenai. In order to prevent that disaster from happening, we don't allow a woman to do miyun even min ha-nesuin. Says the Gemara, if this is the reasoning, so I have a question. What happens if they only did chuppah? They did nesuin through chuppah, but not through a bia. So there's no cancellation. If it would be a tenai, there would be no cancellation of the tenai through the love created by the bia, because there was no bia. So therefore, there's no problem of the tenai. The tenai could still be a good tenai. If you cancel a marriage that had nesuin through chuppah but not through bia because of a tenai, it should be a good cancellation, and therefore you should be able to walk out through miyun because there's no possible problem that could occur. So Gemara says, no, it's not correct. A tenai cannot be used to cancel a marriage but not nesuin, even if the nesuin is only chuppah. And the reason is because the chuppah itself creates a special love, and he is mochel that tenai there as well, and he can no longer say afterwards that he wants to break it up because of that tonight. Therefore, you also have to make sure that you do not cancel a marriage because of miyun, even if just chuppah happened, because again, people will learn the wrong halacha and assume that the marriage was canceled because of it tonight. Or says, okay, but hold on a second. There's another type of nesuin, and that's nesuin where the woman is given over to the messengers of the husband. She never actually goes to the husband, but to his messengers. In that case, there's no love created at all. You can't tell me that a tenai can't be canceled after that because he was mochel the tenai in that case. Also, that's impossible. So therefore, you should be able to say that miyun should work if she was just given over to the messengers of the husband. However, Beis Shammai doesn't make that distinction in the Mishnah. Beis Shammai says any nesuin you cannot do miyun anymore. What's the problem? Here there's no potential mistake because you could cancel it through a tenai. So Gemara says it's a low plug. It's just simple. We don't want to make distinguishments that are fine-tuned within a case. We just say generally all nesuins you cannot cancel. Now, what does Beis Hillel hold? Beis Hillel says, no, people understand this was a marriage of a ketana. They understand it wasn't a tanai, it was a miyun. All right, this is all the first explanation as to what Beis Shammai holds, and this is brought by Rav Yehuda in the name of Shmuel. Now the Gemara brings the next explanation, which is both Rabbah and Rav Yosef together. They say that the reason is because a person does not want his bia to be a bias znos. That's a bia which is not part of a marriage. Now, the Rabbanan made the takana of a marriage of a ketana who doesn't have a father because they were afraid that she would be hefker. She can't get married, and therefore she'll just be hefker. She'll be wandering around without rules. Therefore, they made a Rabbanan marriage that her mother or brothers can marry her off. Now, people won't want to get into that situation if they know that you could just walk out and their bia is a bias is nos. Therefore, Chazal, as part of this takana, had to say, once a bia is done, you cannot walk out of this anymore, because people don't want to have a situation where they did a bia and then the marriage is over, just like that. Now, Beis Hillel holds it's not a problem. People understand it's not a bias nos. It was part of a marriage. The marriage was good till then, and then she canceled the marriage, but they don't consider the bia to be a bias znus. Somebody says, okay, now I have the same questions on Beis Shammai's head before. What about chuppah? Why can't she cancel the marriage if she only did chuppah? There's no bia that happened, so there's no bias znus. So the Gemara answers it similarly. People don't want a chuppah to be a chuppah that's leading to Isser. They're not going to want to do a chuppah either. They're going to do a chuppah, and the chuppah is going to be leading towards a bia, which would be a bia zos, even though they didn't do the bia. But the chuppah itself is part of a chuppah's Isser. They don't like that because there's no real Isser, but it's going to be part of a marriage, which will then be canceled. So the Gemara says, okay, I understand that, but what about if she's just given over to the shluchim of the husband? There, that's an assuming as well, and there's nothing that people won't want to do. They won't care to have her given over to the shluchim of the husband, even if it's canceled. The Gemara says, and then I'll say again, lo plug. All right, now the third explanation comes from Rav Papa. He says, Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai both are arguing over the usage of her property. The halacha is that a woman's nichsei meloga, property that she brings into the marriage, belongs to her, but the husband gets to use them. And they both get their opinions over how the husband is going to use it. Beis Shammai says, you don't want to let the husband use her property if she could still do miyun. Once nisuin happens, the husband has a right to use her property. If he knows that she could walk out at any time, he's going to use it up. He'll destroy it. He'll get everything out of it that he could, because he knows she may leave at any moment. Beis Hillel says, no, the opposite is true. He's going to make sure to take good care of it and not destroy it at all, because her relatives will convince her to walk out of the marriage if he's abusing her property. Therefore, he'll make sure, because of the fruits, because he wants to be able to use her property, he's going to make sure to take good care of it if there is a miyun option at all times. Therefore, we want the miyun option to be there, and it's very good for her to be able to do miyun even after nisuin. The Gemara's last explanation comes from Rava. He says a person will not want to do a marriage. He won't want to do a nisuin marriage if he knows that it could be canceled, because he doesn't want to invest in the suda of the wedding in a situation where it's going to go to waste. That's Beis Shammai's approach. Beis Hillel says no, people want the marriage to be well known, want people to be aware of it, want her to have the name of being married, and therefore he's willing to invest in it even though the possibility of miyun exists. Okay, now the Gemara goes further to the next discussion, which is miyun from yibum. So the Gemara is going to have three different. The Gemara is going to have two opinions as to what we mean when we say that there's a machlokes over whether or not a woman could do miyun from yibum, and then we'll have three different explanations as to how it applies to the other brothers. Now, when we say that a woman is yibum, she's doing miyun from yibum, there's three possible stages we could be referring to. We could be referring to when she first falls to yibum, all she has on her is the zika. Could she do miyun and walk out of that? She could be referring to after the bia was already performed, after she already did yibum. Could she walk out of that? And then she could be referring to the middle stage where there is a maimer. That is one of the brothers gave her kiddushin, which is a Rabbanan start to the Yibum process but didn't end the Yibum process. So the Gemara assumes there's definitely no machlokes, even Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai don't argue, that once the Yibum is performed, she's a regular wife with a regular husband, and she can do full-fledged miyun. She could walk out just like she could have walked out of any other marriage. This is not called Yavam anymore. This is her husband, and she can do miyun just like any other ketana who is married off by her brother, or a mother can do miyun. That's not the issue. The issue is, what about maimer? So there, everybody agrees that this is a case of machlokas between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. Maimer, where she falls to yibum, and one of the brothers gives her kiddushin, so she can undo that kiddushin by saying, mian. I want to walk out of this kedushin that you did. She doesn't require a get to get out of it. She doesn't require a chalitza to get out of it. She could just undo that. And once that's undone, she's back to a regular zika, and she needs chalitza to get out of that. The machlokes amoraim is Ar Beis Hillel Beis Shammai arguing in a case where she just says a zika. Would Beis Hillel say that a mian can undo a zika or not? So the Gemara says that Rabbi Oshia says a mian cannot undo a zika. Ula says a mian can undo a zika. Now Ula is easier to understand. Ula says what happens when she does a mian is that she uproots her original marriage to the dead brother, to her original husband. She was never married to him in the first place. Therefore, the zika is undone. Nothing to discuss. Rabbi Oshia says no, you can't undo it. And Rashi on Daf Yud Beis way earlier in the Masechta explains that Rabbi Yoshi is concerned about a dirabanan, that it looks like she's married. And look, when she falls to Yevamos, the moment that she falls to Yevamos, there's an appearance of marriage here. You don't want her to be able to undo that. People are going to misunderstand it. But the Gemara here explains it. The Gemara has two attempts to explain what Rabbi Yoshi is saying. So the Gemara's first is that it makes sense that she could do mian, or walk out of a maimer situation, because maimer is something that she agreed to. Can't do maimer against her will. Therefore, if she agreed to it, so then she could walk out of it. It was only performed with her consent. She could say, I don't consent anymore, and she could do mian to that. However, a zika was put on her bal karcha. There's nothing she could do about that, and therefore she can't walk out of it. So the Gemara says that doesn't make sense, because if she had a yibum could be done bal karcha, and she could walk out of that. Everybody agrees to that, because she's a regular husband. So the Gemara says, therefore, what we mean to say is as follows. Maimer is something that he did. Her husband did maimer with her. She could walk out of that. Zika, bia, those things, that's put on her from the Torah. That's the right. So she can't walk out of that situation. The bia, the yibum, she could undo, because that's something that she did. The maimer is something she did. Those she could walk out of. However, zika is a deraisa. It's the Torah puts a zika on her. There's no way to cancel that. Now the understanding over here is, of course, that there's a dirabanan. It looks as if she's married the time she falls to yibum. Now the Gemara says that Rava as the kasha on Ula. How can Ula say that the original marriage is canceled and therefore there isn't any longer any zika? We have a problem, because there's a brayso that says when a woman is a tzaras ervas kitana, she can't do yibum, she has to do chalitza. This refers to the following halacha. As we've seen in the beginning of the Masechta, and an erva falls to yibum, there is no zika, she's free. Her tzara is also free. Now what happens if the erva is a katana and she could do mian? So there we said that the tzara is only a halfway tzaras erva, because the marriage of the erva herself is somewhat flimsy. She could end up canceling it, walking out of it. Therefore, it's only considered a partial marriage, and therefore it's only a marriage of Rabbanan, and therefore the tzaras erva is only considered to be a partial tzaras erva. She can't do yibum, and she has to do chalitza. So the Gemara says, why don't we have a simple solution? Let the erva do mian. According to Ula, that uproots her original marriage in the first place. If that's the case, her tzara is no longer tzaras erva. The erva is never part of this marriage. It's undone retroactively. Then the tzaras erva is just a regular wife, so then she should be able to do yibum. What's the problem? Why don't we give her that option of doing yibum by the erva herself doing mian? So Gemara says no, because here Ula agrees that there is a gzeira. Because here, at the time that she fell to yibum, because she's an erva, at the time she fell to yibum, people look and see the falling to yibum of an erva. They see that happening. That creates the appearance of a marriage, and we can't undo that appearance. This woman looks like a tzaras erva, and she's not going to unlook like a tzaras erva just because there's a mian there. And it's very similar to halacha, which we've seen also back on Daf Yud Beis, which is Rami Rachama, who says that although if a woman does mian, she can then marry her former husband's father, because there's no isser there, the original marriage is undone. But if there's a yibum, if they fall to yibum, then you don't say she could go marry the relatives of her first husband, because the yibum creates a lasting impression. The moment of falling to yibum, we have to make gzeira to aser any status which existed at that time. We can't just ignore. All right, now the Gemara is the three machlokes. What happens if there's a number of brothers? One of them does she does mian to one of them. What's her status? So the three opinions are as follows. The first opinion is Rav, who says if she does mian to one of them, she's usher to all of the other brothers as well. Mian makes her usher to this brother she did mian to, now she's usher to all the other ones as well. And the reason is because it counts as if a get, as if she got a get. The halacha is that a yavam is not supposed to give a get to his yavam, that's not really supposed to cancel anything, but it does have a derabanan effect of severing the connection between them somewhat, so that now there's an issur for them to continue to do yibum afterwards. And that's true for all the other brothers as well. So we're referring here to when she was just falling to yibum, and she did a miyun, she said, I don't want this, and that severs the connection to some extent, and therefore they're all not allowed to do yibum anymore. That's Rav's opinion. Shmuel says no, the issur was only created to the brother that she did miyun to, because she only said, I refuse you, I don't want you. She didn't say anything about the other one, so there's no severing of the connection to the other brothers at all. That's Shmuel's opinion. And the third opinion is that of Rav Asi. Rav Asi says she's permitted to everybody. She does miyun to one of them, she can do yibum to that one or any of the other ones. It has zero effect. So the Gemara says, it seems like Rav Asi holds that a miyun, in a case of yibum, falling zikas yibum has zero effect. So it must be Rav Asi holds like Rabbi Oishia, who said that you cannot do miyun to a zika. So the Gemara says, no. Rabbi Asi would say that even Ula would agree here. This is not dependent on Rabbi Oshia's opinion. Rabbi Oshia said that you cannot cancel a zika with a miyun. That's even if there's only one brother, where that brother has the complete zika. The only zika that exists is him. And on that, if she does miyun, so then you would think that she broke the entire zika. That's what Rabbi Oshia says, and Ula disagrees that there's whether or not the miyun breaks the zika. In a case where there are many brothers, and she only does a miyun to one of them, she's only breaking part of the zika with that miyun, there, everyone would agree that does not break the zika, and therefore that is worthless and counts as nothing. Now the Gemara says that Ravin came and he said in the name of Rav Yechanan that if she does miyun to one, she's permitted to all the other brothers. And the other Chachamim disagreed with Rav Yechanan on this. So who's the other Chachamim? So the Gemara again says three opinions. Abaye says it's referring to Rav. Rav, as we saw earlier, says that she is usher to the other brothers. Rav Yechanan here is saying that she's mutter. Another approach could be that it's Rav Asi, who said that she's mutter to all of them, even to him. And the third approach would be that the one who disagrees is Rav Oshia, because Rav Oshia said that it's not just in a case where there's multiple brothers that it has zero effect. Even if it's one brother, it has its zero effect. Here, however, Rabbi Yechanan seemed to be saying that this is only true in the case of multiple brothers, and therefore he would be arguing. All right, now the Gemara goes to the next machlokas, which is seen in the Mishnah. The Mishnah said there's a machlokas whether or not the miyun has to be done in front of the husband. So Gemara says that Beis Hillel said to Beis Shammai, there's a clear case where we saw that it does not have to be in front of the husband. There was Pishon, the camel driver, his wife did miyun, not in front of him, and it was accepted. So Gemara said that Beis Shammai answered that was different. This person in Pishon, the camel driver, had a knas. The Chachamim took steps against him because he was abusing his wife's property. He was using up all her value, and therefore they allowed her to walk out of the marriage even without him being around. So the Gemara asks, hold on a second, if he was using up her property, that means that he had access to her property, that means it was already min hasuin. But Beis Shammai says he can't do miyun min hasuin. The Gemara says no, they took two steps against him. First of all, they allowed her to do miyun even not in front of him, and they allowed her to do miyun even though she was already in the suah. All right, now to the next machlokas in that Mishnah. That was, is there have to be a Beis Din there or not? Beis Hillel said you don't need a Beis Din. Beis Shammai said you do. The Gemara says there's a Mishnah that says chalitza and miyun both require three people. So that seems to be that this Mishnah is going like Beis Shammai. The Gemara says no, it's not necessarily going like Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel agrees you need to have three people. Beis Hillel was saying you don't have to have three mumchim, you don't have to have three judges, but three people you do have to have. The Gemara quotes a brisa that way. The brisa says Beis Shammai says you need a Beis Din. Beis Hillel says you need a Beis Din, but not a real Beis Din. And everybody agrees that you need to have three. However, Rabbi Yisrael, Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Elazar, and Rabbi Shimon say you don't have to have three, even two is enough. Rabbi Yisrael Bar Menumi says, and then Rabbi Nachman, the halacha is like those two. The halacha is like Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Yisrael, Rabbi Yehuda, that two are enough. All right, last halacha in the Mishnah was that if you can do yibum, if you could do miyun multiple times, Beis Shammai said no. If she did a miyun and she wants to get married now, again, she has to wait until she's an adult, do miyun, and then get married. So why should she do miyun again? So the Gemara has two explanations. First explanation is Shmuel. Shmuel says she doesn't have to do mian again when she becomes an adult, but she does have to confirm her previous mian. She has to say, yes, my mian that I did when I was a child, I still want to be out of that marriage, and then she's free, she can go get married again, now she's an adult. Ua said, no, there's a totally different meaning of what's happening over here. We didn't say she has to do mian again. We're giving her two options how to get married again. One option is wait until she grows up. Second option is do mian and get married right away. When we said do mian and get married, we didn't say we weren't saying she should wait till she grows up and do mian and get married. We were saying second option is for her to do mian and get married right away, do nisuin right away. Because remember, this is Beis Shammai talking, and Beis Shammai says once you do nisuin, we don't have to be afraid she's going to do mian because she can't do mian anymore. So if she does mian nisuin right away to the second man, then we don't have any issues of concern that she'll be hefker, and therefore it's okay. All right, now we get to our next Mishnah. Next Mishnah discusses when does a girl even require mian? When does the mian procedure not have to be done? It's not even needed because the marriage is worth nothing. So the Gemara says it's only if she was married off by her mother or by her brother, and it was with her agreement. If it was without her agreement, she doesn't have to do a formal mian. She never agreed, the marriage is worthless. So Chanina ben Atigna says she has to be a certain age. She has to be old enough to keep an eye on her kesef kedushin. If she's not that old, then it's not worth anything. She doesn't have to do a mian at all. Now, the Gemara goes on to a different halacha as to whether the marriage that's mianable has an effect on her as far as kahuna. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Elazar says that it counts as a mafuta, does not put her as part of her husband's household as far as truma. So if she's a bas Yisrael married to a Kohen, she does not get the right to eat truma. If it's a bas Kohen married to Yisrael, she still retains the right to eat truma of her father's house. Now the Mishnah ends with a cryptic statement, which the Gemara will explain later on a different daf. Elazar ben Yaakov says anything where she is held over because of the man, she counts as his wife. Anything where she's held over for other reasons, she does not count as his wife. The Gemara will explain what that means. All right, now the Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda says, we learned in a brisa. In the beginning, they used to write a shtar mian. They used to write a document to record the mian, and it said as follows. It said, I don't want him, I don't need him, I'm not interested in him, I don't want to be married to him, and it wrote out a whole thing about how the mian was performed. Then they saw that it's too wordy, and people didn't bother reading it, and they saw there's so many words, they thought it was a get. Therefore they said, for now we're going to write a simple one line, I, Pliny, on day Pliny did mian from Pliny in front of him.